You're listening to Unfiltered Brew, hosted by Master Cicerone, Joe Vogelbacher, and brewery founder Eric Flanagan, out of the Sugar Creek Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Funny question, Eric. Somebody asked me the other day about mosquitoes in beer, and a lot of people don't realize that you hear all these different theories. One being that maybe mosquitoes are attracted to people that have a certain blood type, okay, or maybe they're attracted to somebody because they sweat more than the other, or maybe because they're a certain ethnicity or something like that. Well, it turns out they've done studies on what actually attracts them, and it's carbon dioxide. So they're attracted to when we breathe out like this. It's mostly carbon dioxide when we breathe out. So if you're out there breathing, they're attracted to that. And that's when they know an animal's around because everything breathes out carbon dioxide. So when we're making beer back here in the cellar, we're tuning in today from the cellar, all these tanks that are have the airlocks going into the buckets, they're releasing carbon dioxide constantly. So if you have the door open back there in the brew house, mosquitoes just swarm in here. I don't know if any other brewers experience that, but you'll get a ton of them through here just from the carbon dioxide.
We get multiple kinds now in Charlotte. We get the ones with the zebra legs. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
And I read on Wikipedia that's a certain type. I hate to say this, but came from China and places like that in Connex boxes. I read through shipping. So that's what is it? When you look at,
is that the one that gives you like the Zika strain or something like that?
Is the one that hurts when it bites you.
Yeah.
It's, you got the little ones that you barely see, and then you got the ones, you look at the leg, it's silver black. They look like a tiger. I just call them tiger stripes. They hurt. They'll leave a well. But let me ask you a question. Most of my life, I feel like I've gone unbitten. Ever since you and I have owned this brewery, I feel like I get bit by mosquitoes more than ever.
Yeah.
Am I drinking beer that is going through my body and releasing more carbon monoxide, dioxide into the atmosphere because of this? Like, why am I getting bit by mosquitoes so much these days?
I mean, that's the thing. The beer itself has carbon dioxide in it. So when you pour it into your glass and release the bubbles, not only are you exhaling carbon dioxide, the bubbles that are releasing from the beer will attract the mosquitoes. So beer drinkers themselves are more subject to mosquito bites.
Now, not to put you on the spot, but if I have 3 beers on a Friday night and then Saturday morning I mow the lawn and I'm sweating, there should be no effects there.
Shouldn't be any difference, right. But it's interesting to think about. But another thing that people don't realize, and you see this a lot at bars, is that you see fruit flies. And when you ferment beer, and there's all beer, when it's fermenting, for the most part, has different chemical or aromatic esters and things like that come out during the fermentation. And one is the isoamyl acetate, which is the banana flavor. Now that banana flavor from the fruit fly is the same as in the sex pheromone for the fruit fly. Huh. So when it smells that, it thinks it's mating season. Oh. And that's why you get a lot of those flies that come in, and especially, they're attracted to bananas. And that smell is a common smell that you find in beer. You can find it in Pilsners, really strong in like a Coors Banquet beer, or in German Hefeweizen. It's in German Hef beer. It's in that really, really strong. Those kind of beers have a lot of banana flavor. And it makes fruit flies like.
It makes them think it's shagging season.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How about that? So I know we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but since we've got some beer here, Joe just had a birthday, turned 36 years old. And since he's a master cicerone, people like to buy him beer gadgets. So I think it's funny. But have you used any?
I've used this one before. Let's give it a try. So here we have the Big O Booty beer in a can, and we have this gadget called the Draft Top. Now,
and look, we've done some social media with it, and they bounced us on social media and said thanks, but I mean, it's not paid or anything.
No.
We love doing stuff and having a good time. I've also got a 12-year-old beer or a 10-year-old beer too that I thought would be cool to try out, but
Oh yeah, I got to get
Took
that.
me more than one try on this.
So let's see if I can get it to work.
It's a great.
So basically this is like a can opener.
Sounded good.
A can opener for beer. So let's see what happens.
So, I mean, for a guy like you, you can get a little more bouquet out of the can now. Right?
Let's see if I can make it work.
A few moments later.
Okay, there it goes.
There we go. All right. What do you think?
I mean, I don't think it's supposed to fall in like it did, but
fell in.
let's see. Oh,
If
there's the
anybody's
lid.
got one of these, let us know.
That's not so good. But this part is good. Now I have, let's see if it's sharp. Magnitude's better than just drinking it from the can regularly.
Really?
Oh yeah. Way better.
Oh boy, I really wanted this to work well on camera. It never does it?
Yeah, no, this is great. I like this a lot. It's not sharp at all.
Yeah.
Open the top. It was a little tricky getting the lid out. It actually fell into my beer. That's not ideal. But I think it's supposed to clip underneath the tab here and then pull the lid out. But you'll notice when I'm drinking this now my nose is right on top of the beer. So I'm getting those good aromatics. I mean, I like pouring it into a glass because when you pour into a glass, you know, you get turbulence and it foams up and that gets the aromatics even more. But this is way better than just drinking it from the can where your nose is up against the metal, you know. Here I have my nose in the beer. So now, Eric, you've used this other gadget before.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about how this one works?
So,
This one.
yeah, so, you know, my wife and I messed with this thing. You know what happens when you get a gadget, you know, you get a
What's that thing called?
pasta maker. Did you say the name of that one? That one's
This is called a draft top.
this one, doesn't have, all right. So that's the first problem with this piece of equipment. There's no name on it. Unfortunately, I can't give them credit, but
It has fresh batteries in it.
okay. All right. Have you used it yet? So it clamps, right?
Do you have a seal now on there?
I don't know. Have you used it?
I have not used this one, but I've used
Ooh. All right.
I've used them before. I think you're supposed to pour the first part of the beer, and then you just add this as a topper.
Yeah, absolutely. But
So I think you take it off and pour some beer in first.
think,
Yeah. Okay. Can you do it that way?
You do it like this. So it pours nice and gentle, which not bad. Let me just. Yeah, all right. It's not decarbonate. Now here we go.
Pushing the button.
Pushing the button. Do you think we need to pour at the same time? Yes, you do. There it is.
Wow! Look at that.
So it's a natural pour. You just. So when we did this, it was hilarious because it
Let me try that.
reminds the first person, you know, they go, oh, it's like Guinness. Well, we just stripped all the carbonation out of the beer. That's all.
That's exactly what it is. It's a carbonation stripper.
But we use it on social media. It's a great thing. Look at that. I mean, look, if you do 2/3 and then a third, it might be great.
I mean, that's thick.
It is. It's a small bubble too. I mean, we've all got great beer.
Cheers.
Smaller the bubble, the better. I'm kind of a fan of that pumpkin beer.
Oh yeah.
Just the foam. You know, I always overlooked the foam until I read that book, Tasting Beer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small book. It's just on tasting beer, and it was like the first time I ever heard somebody go, "Hey, enjoy the foam. It's a part of the beer." Most people just rub their nose and they're like, "Oh, they'll blow it out." It's like, hey, grab the foam, put it in your mouth, move it around, inhale, exhale. You get a lot of flavor out of the foam.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think Guinness is so drinkable, because Guinness being nitrogenated, it's got what is it, 70-30 nitrogen, carbon dioxide. So the body of the beer is mostly flat. And when you pour beer from the Guinness can, it goes through the widget, and that basically makes a little tiny orifice for the beer to come out, and it forces all the nitrogen out of solution, and you get this good creamy foam. But the body of the beer is basically flat. So your foam's on top. It's enhancing your experience. It's releasing the aromatics. It's not going into the stomach, making the beer more drinkable, adding texture, adding mouthfeel, those sort of things. And
Can I say something?
yeah,
I have used this thing once, this apparatus with no name, completely destroyed my beer. I did it with a Pilsner because I ran the whole thing through it because you know me, I don't read instructions. I've tried to ramp a forklift onto a platform before too. But I got to tell you, foaming the top and leaving the bottom calm, I'm getting nice carbonated with a little bit of a whippy top. That's pretty darn good. I'm going to try an IPA out of it.
so we added the Lucre tap to our offerings at Sugar Creek, and in that Lucre tap, the whole idea of that tap, it's kind of like that gooseneck tap that the Czech people in Czech use. The whole idea of it is to give the bartender more control over the foam placement. So you can pour the beer from the bottom up, and that really keeps the carbon dioxide in the beer. The beer is still carbonated. And then you can open it partially if you want, and that creates turbulence, enough turbulence to put the foam on the beer. Now you've laid a layer of foam on top of the beer, and now that prevents the underlying layer from being oxidized, and it gives the good creamy mouthfeel, and it retains the carbon dioxide and the carbonation in the original beer. That's one way. Another way they do it is they make the whole entire glass foam, which is kind of insane to me, but it's called like a Milko pourer. It's all foam, and girls are fans of this. Women are fans of this at night because the beer is said to be a little sweeter, and on top of it, it's less filling, and you're less likely to get drunk. So women and men metabolize beer differently, alcohol differently. I'm not sure if you knew that, but even if we're the same size, women metabolize slower from what I've read. So you have to be careful, ladies, if you're out there drinking, that you don't try to keep up with your partner because if you have a male partner, because you might end up going over the limit a little easier than you think. But good advice for new drinkers too.
Yeah, I mean, look, my wife and I cook together all the time, and we love to just crack a 16-ounce beer and split it in glasses like this. And then, after the second one, I usually look at her and go, all right, I'm a very big man and you're a very small woman. Let's remember that.
Yeah, definitely. It's blood alcohol content. So the more blood you have, the lower your BAC is going to be per given volume of beer. But then on top of that, you have your body's natural ability to metabolize it. So that's something that
So
you
back
have to
to
be
that
concerned about.
tap real quick. While you were describing that and basically how to control the disturbance, I remember, man, probably 8, maybe 9 years ago, you and I cleaning a draft line, and we had checked everything. And it wasn't temperature, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. I remember which bar and restaurant it was at. I'm not going to say which one it was. They're great customers and they're still in business. And they wanted to give us this tap line, but they're having a problem. And we could not figure out why this thing was foaming so bad. And then finally, it spit out. It looked like a gold nugget size, but it was black.
Oh.
And that was when you realized you were like, you know what? This was stuck in the line, and the pressure was still forcing the beer past it, which was causing foam after that, right?
Yeah, no doubt, 100%. You can't have that's how the Guinness widget works. I think I've explained this on the show before, but inside the Guinness can, they have a little ping pong ball. That's the widget. And
try one of those Lucre. Can you grab a Lucre pour for me? Yeah, please, will you? Thank you.
So inside the Guinness can, there's the ping pong ball with a hole in it, and that thing's called the widget. So right before they put the lid on See if I can get. No, I can't. Right before the lid goes on top of the. Fine, I've got this one. They drop the widget in, and then they put one drop of liquid nitrogen, and then seal the lid. As soon as they do that, the liquid nitrogen expands. It pushes beer inside the widget, which is basically a hollow ball with a little hole in it. When you open the can, you have a pressure drop, and that beer rushes out that tiny orifice. When it rushes out that tiny orifice, it releases it nucleates inside the can, and you pour it, and that's what gives you that creamy foam. So that's the whole thing. It's just if you have a draft line, if you have anything where there's a restriction, it'll cause the bubbles to come out. So I know we did one at one place, Eric, if you remember. Of course, they call us and they blame us for the keg being overcarbonated. They're like, we pour the draft, and it's the beer is overcarbonated, and we need you to come get your keg, and it's only your beer, it's nobody else's. So I go there and we look at everything. We look at the pressure, we look at the temperature, everything looks good. And they're right, it's foaming. I can't figure out what's going on. And after a couple hours investigating and taking things apart, I opened up the top of the draft tower, and the last person that cleaned the line had twisted the line inside of the draft tower and caused it to kink. So now you have, just like a hose, when you pinch your garden hose outside, you get all of that, the turbulence coming out. That's what was happening in there. So once we unkinked that, then it was the foaming went away. But it's almost always a draft problem.
Well, I mean, the biggest problem is with a draft system. When you're having an issue, it's like when you're looking for your car keys, it's in the last place you look. Problem with the draft line is you start in one place and it's not there, and you literally just have to go through one after another after another. Thank you so much. That is great. Huh? You wanna try?
No, go for it.
All right. So this glass has to be served in this glass.
I mean,
This is what
this
do.
beer, you mean? That's the beer that they'll serve it to, the glass they'll serve it to you in the Czech Republic. I would have liked to see a little bit more foam on it, but pretty good.
Well, we didn't have a bartender pour it. We had a videographer pour it. This is good. This is good. Holy smokes. The truth is, all these beers are good because it's Sunday and we've been running around taking care of our families, and we had a quick break to come knock out a podcast with an old friend. So
we were talking a little bit before the meeting here, the podcast, Eric, about there's been a lot of different announcements and things like that going on in the industry. A lot of kind of head-turning news, and I thought it might be, something good to talk about and go through some of those headlines that they've been out recently. The one that's really kind of struck home for me, and it just came out last week, that Tilray had announced layoffs, and they laid off their entire innovation team at 10 Barrel. Crazy to me, because right around this time, this is near hop harvest again. I was in Washington last year, hand selecting our hops for our beer, and I had run into the 10 Barrel crew out in Washington, Yakima, Washington, selecting their hops. And Tilray had just announced last year that they were buying 10 Barrel. Tilray's the big cannabis company, if I remember correctly. So a lot of the employees there that were doing the selection of the hops were really excited to have a new owner, not be involved with AB anymore, and have a chance for like maybe turning over a fresh leaf. And then fast forward a year later, and they're having layoffs, cutting people off, out. And then I think maybe the article I read, at least, and I think it's right, and Tanya's in Beers of Joy with us. I think she is the most award-winning brewmaster, any brewmaster in the world. And she was the youngest brewmaster and the only female brewmaster to be named Brewers Association Brewer of the Year, and has won, I don't even know how many World Beer Cup medals. And then last year in the World Beer Cup medal, she's the first brewer in history to sweep an entire category blind, where she won the gold, silver, and bronze, which is just absurd. So I know too, from judging, when you get at that level, and all the beers are at the final table, that everything is damn good. So the judges kind of almost flip a coin for first, second, and third sometimes. But it's crazy to think that. But I mean,
It is that close.
yeah,
Sometimes
because
all the beers are a 10. Sometimes they just recognize a flavor that they know is a particular brand that always wins, and sometimes they go with that. And it stinks to hear, but the talented people are going to find jobs, don't you think?
oh yeah, any brewery would be lucky to have her or her
We
teammates.
could pair. We'd love to have her.
Yeah.
Just to add to our, we make great products too, and it's not an easy time right now for breweries. Cost of goods and things are high and things like that. I mean, people can go on for days, but if you make a good product and you work at it and you slowly refine it, you should be all right. But I mean, at that point, how many times had 10 Barrel moved around? I mean, I think when we opened a little over 10 years ago, they were just selling the AB, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their owners came out with those videos and they maneuvered well for a while on the West Coast. And Tanya seemed to be happy for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, this.
And she's got to be kind of grateful too. She made some phenomenal beers for a long time.
I think that
The best beers,
it's a really interesting question that you ask. You know, if you make, is it enough really to just make an amazing product, right? Will the people find you if you make an amazing product? That's really the question.
Well, I would say 10 years ago, yes, but I would say I think a lot of breweries make amazing products now. America does what America does, and we decided we wanted to get on this craft beer wagon, and we decided we didn't want to mail order West Blederen 12 like we used to back in the day, and we started making these products, and we started manufacturing this stuff in the country, and the next thing you know, I mean, Jim Koch was just on, it was either Birthing Giants or How I Built This, and he was talking about how many times he's had to re-innovate and how the cycle has happened, and you can't stop. You just got to keep making good products. And
I mean, I think that's true in any business, that you have to reinvent yourself constantly.
well, I mean, look at automobiles right now, right? I think, are you going electric? You going EV? You going hydrogen powered? What are you doing? By the way, this is my first time having pumpkin beer. This isn't a pumpkin beer commercial, but this year is great. I know we brew it the same every year, but man, this tastes good. This is real good. This is just now hitting the streets. What's the date today? September 9th.
Yep.
And this has been on the street. So shame on us, guys. We make pumpkin beer in late July and sell it in August now.
No, you have to. You got to get it.
6 years ago, we hated this version of ourselves.
I think, yeah.
Those guys selling pumpkin beer
We put a
in
lot.
summertime.
We put a lot of beer out, a lot of pumpkin beer out. So I'm thankful for that.
I am too. I mean, look, when we started, we said, hey, we don't want to make IPAs like everybody else. We don't want you. Let's just make beers that we like and enjoy it. And I mean, the competition got fierce. And then the biggest thing was when you started saying it first, you start to develop the following. And then these people go, hey, Joe, Sugar Creek, will you please give us an IPA? And you have to. You cannot tell your customer no.
You look around this brewery and people get the impression, because we're relatively large brewery for Charlotte. If you compare just what we have in Charlotte, I think we're the 5th largest in Charlotte.
There's a lot of breweries in Charlotte.
If you look at all of our equipment and you look at the space, being it's over 30,000 square feet, you're like, wow, these guys just must be absolutely killing it with just raking home the money. But what people don't realize is that your beer is being made, then it's being sold to a distributor. They're taking margin. Then it goes from the distributor to the retailer. They're taking margin. Then it goes from the retailer to the consumer, right? So we have a system, the 3-tier system, which was set up after Prohibition, specifically to limit the ability of breweries to grow. So yes, you have people that can punch through that and work really well, but man, it's hard. It's hard. If you make one hiccup or glitch, it's hard to make that profit. You have to put a lot of cans of beer out. So a lot of cans of beer out have to go out to make some money.
I think one thing, we live in a battleground state. If people don't know what that word is yet, they better figure it out. And people live in their bubble, right? And we've been hooking and jabbing. You and I joke around about the blood spilled these days, but we've been hooking and jabbing since we started, right? bottle and then can, and then right as the cans started to do good, COVID, and then we flash sold kegs, and then we came out of COVID, and now our whole entire neighborhood is changing, and it's tough, but I don't think it's the same in every state, so it's one of those things where, is it possible for guys that make good beer to take their products to other states, or where it's not so fierce, where there is a demand? Or do you think that's why you still see some of these? Because there are still breweries right now that are slabbing on 10,000 barrels a year right now.
Yeah.
Still some.
I mean, it's back to the question again, right? Is it just the quality that sells? And the other headline I think that we were talking about was Molson Coors cutting their DEI initiative, right? And we all know, if you look around craft beer, that we can benefit from diversity. We can benefit from more people of color, more women, all of that kind of stuff. And in the last few years, there's been a big push to kind of make things more equitable. And now with the economy contracting, people are cutting that section of their budget because they just simply can't afford to anymore, which is crazy. And you looked at Bud Light, you had the whole big scandal here recently with their endorsement that caused, their social media influencers endorsement that caused nearly a 20% decline in Bud Light sales. So if it was just the quality of the product, okay, and it was just the product that you wanted, then it wouldn't matter. That stuff like that wouldn't matter. But stuff does matter. So it's a mixture, I think, of your knowing your customer, putting out your messaging, let people know what you stand for. Okay, and for us, it's been clear, I think, since day one that our whole goal was to continually improve our product, make the best possible product we can, and get it out there so people can have a fresh example of a good quality product.
And you wanted to make sure that the employees tap dance to work.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
Well, unfortunately, if you don't have a profit, no one's tap dancing.
Yeah. So on that note, you're talking about, everything you're just going over. Is it cool to talk about, we might be opening a little bit of a satellite location up north, and kind of like you're saying right now, we're trying to help our partners up north who are very good restaurant people. We're trying to help them understand exactly what a brewery is. It's like, hey, breweries aren't just restaurants. They're a part of the community. They're a culture. There's a lot going on. How many weddings have we had here now?
People have had their first date, gotten engaged, and gotten married here. We've had that.
My wife and I are part of a new soccer team, and half the people have met us. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Sugar Creek Brewing Company. I met my wife there." And you're sitting here going, "Wow, all right. Well, it has been 10 years, and it's been a good time. So I guess I don't realize that, but you end up touching a lot of people. So in the end."
And can you think of how many tens of thousands of dollars we've donated to charity over the years?
Well, that's a good point. I always harp on the fact that you see a lot of companies that promote how many dollars they raise all the time, and they promote when they go do this or that, or they go to a soup kitchen. We don't talk about near as much unless it's an active one that we do where we're trying to invite people out. But yeah, to be honest with you, I was trying to. I bet we've probably done close to $1 million in generation since we started.
I think that number is probably light.
Yeah, because you got to think about the amount of beer that we've donated for events that cause paddles to go up. It's very simple. When you drink a beer, you smile a little more, and next thing you know, the paddle starts flying. Or the beers and burpees thing we just did beers and burpees. They sell that beer. They sell it in grocery stores. A portion of that profit goes towards beers and burpees. 24 Foundation, you're president of that. Portion of that goes, we're doing it in every direction these days. And not to mention, we just did the Dream On 3 thing, and we donated a pallet of beer in a day with you. And the paddles went crazy. Next thing you know, I think it was $19,000 was where the bid slowed down. And then the guy's like, "Can we split it?" Like, I guess. And then bang, next thing you know, it's $38,000 race, and all these people wanted to do was come hang out with you for the day and get a free pallet of beer with their label on. It's like, Joe, hey, remember that pallet of beer? It's 2 now.
It's awesome.
But I mean, you don't realize how many lives you touched through all that, and I mean that's what's honestly good. I think I said that too in Beers of Joy. I was like, hey, if you don't realize you're making millions of cans right here. Look at every single can that goes down that little bottling or canning machine and realize it's going to be in somebody's hand. That's going to be in somebody's hand. I hope that's a good experience. I hope that's a good experience. I hope that's a good experience. So I guess that's why we keep the ABV high, right?
Yeah, and the other big headline I saw on Brewbound today was that Modern Times is laying off 58 people and they're closing their Point Loma location. And I was just out there, I'm a reservist in the Navy, so I had to renew my merchant marine credential, and I have to do that every 5 years. So I was just out that way in California, and the place where I was renewing my license was walking distance from the Point Loma location, the Modern Times location. And I went in there and had some beer, and fantastic seltzer, fantastic beer. They had coffee, really. But it was definitely like an old school brewery where you see no kitchen, just about the beer. You're standing in an industrial park. You're, walking in an industrial area with a small bar in the middle of the big production brewery. And now it's just that those people that led the way for craft beer, where people would go out of their way to go to their factories to kind of taste it at the source. It's been diluted because there's so many breweries now. People don't care about that as much. And
well, let me ask you a question.
They care more about the experience.
Maybe that's another thing that people can comment about, but what is the prototype brewery experience anymore? Because I've told you, you and I signed with wholesalers before a lot of craft breweries. And whether they were scared or thought they were the enemy, we just knew a path we wanted to go down. But now we've had so many restaurants that are breweries and breweries that are restaurants explode. And these guys are spending millions of dollars on their restaurant. They're spending millions of dollars on rent. What is the prototype that the consumer wants these days? There's so many options. I mean, you got Blackberry Farm.
I think they want everything.
Well, that's the problem. It's very expensive to have everything.
They want everything.
Which is also why I think some breweries are struggling and eventually going out of business. Hey, do we need the tap room and the restaurant and the food, or is there a happy medium?
I mean, you think of it, how many hats we juggle. Tap room, restaurant, event room, okay, business to business distribution, business to wholesale distribution, manufacturing, okay.
But look, we've got weddings 2 a month. And you talk about the correspondence going back and forth with people getting married, and sometimes we want to make them a special beer, and you try to be everything to everyone. That's tough.
KBS.
It's your birthday present.
Yeah, thank you.
But it hid in the cabinet. You and I have discussed aging beers for years, and you got really good points on it. I found
bottled February 11th, 2015.
So it's almost 10 years old. Yeah, which is like, hey, look, I found it 5 years later, and it was, oh, dang, it's about 2 years too long. But I had faith because in the very beginning of craft beer, KBS, and probably still is one of my favorites. People used to line up for this everywhere, but America does what America does. Everybody makes good stuff like that. But it's almost 12% dark.
All right, so what do you think? So after 10 years, I'm taking some guesses.
Okay.
My first question, do you think there's going to be bubbles?
So you and I have done this in the past, especially in your Master Cicerone years. I am going to say there's no bubbles, and we are going to get something here along the lines of cognac.
Okay, so no bubbles is your guess. Now, interesting point about that. This is kind of going along with what you're saying. Underneath the bottle cap, we have a plastic ring, and the way this is pushed on and crimped, it's not completely airtight. A lot of people don't realize that crowned bottles are not completely airtight. Cans are, completely airtight based on the seal, the way it's sealed.
So
this is not completely airtight.
But I will say this, all right?
That's why sometimes they wax over them.
Yeah, but I will say this too. And when you and I bottled, not saying we bottled good or bad, but there's definitely a difference in quality of bottle caps.
Yeah.
And when you try to take one of these off one of these Founders products, you got to wrench this thing. Whereas sometimes you get on there and you can just, so, I'm hoping that we've got nothing.
Yeah, there's a tool, kind of looks like the bar key. It has different holes in it. And when you're bottling these, the operator will take a couple off and then put it like this, and then put it, like how I kind of did like this, and go down, and then there's a spec to make sure that it got a really tight crimp on there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the quality points that an operator would do to check.
So what do you think? You're asking me, what do you think? Bubbles or not? What do you expect?
Okay, and then my next question is, did we store this thing in the fridge, or was it at room temperature?
No. So this has been stored in our kitchen with the wine and we don't have a wine cellar, but we just got a little wine shelf.
Sure.
In the dark, hasn't been over 70 degrees in my house in years because I like it cold. But that's where we're at with this. Yeah. So probably not the best.
All right, let me get it
I
close.
gave it to you for your birthday. But
Let's get it close to the mic.
Yes. My boys at Founders.
Let's see.
Ooh.
Pouring like oil. Hardly any bubbles.
That's almost what it looks like. Hey.
Now this style of beer is a flavored stout. Ale brewed with chocolate and coffee, aged in oak bourbon barrels.
Kentucky bourbon stout.
So this style of beer
smells like it's supposed to.
This style of beer is not supposed to be really carbonated. And barrel aged beer in itself a lot of times loses its carbonation in the process because the staves on the barrel, they're not airtight either. They actually let some air in and you get oxidative aging. Interesting thing about this dark beer is that dark malts have these things in them that are called reductones, and reductones actually scavenge oxygen. So if you're going to make a beer and age a beer over a period of time, you want a dark beer is better than a light one for aging.
Which is why
probably
my business partners in Master Cicerone, I decided, now can I tell you something? This thing smells great. I would tell you.
What do you think it's going to taste like?
I think I got a lot of, I've always told you, I think Founders make some of the better beers of this style. I think it's going to taste like
10 years old.
It's going to be more like cognac, but it's still going to be that chocolatey bourbon barrel.
Cheers. Thanks for the birthday present. Thank you. Cheers.
I almost drank it by myself, but you can't. You got to let a Master Cicerone have a 10-year-old beer, even if it stinks. You got to be able to say it stinks.
I get like black licorice, chocolate, coffee flavor, vanilla.
Man, I took care of this thing. Joe, listen, I hope you get me a good birthday present next year. I think this is great for 10 years old. You and I have had some hammers in a bottle at
brown sugar, kind of like caramel, a lot of black licorice.
Not a whole lot of alcohol flavor. I mean, for 12, 11 point, these are usually like almost 12.
Definitely still good. It does not taste bad, meaning like I don't taste any real off flavors. I don't taste a lot of like oxidized flavors. I mean, you have some umami, kind of like, they say umami, but it's like more like a kind of old yeast character.
I was going to say if it was a 7 out of 10, it's a win because you should never let a beer go this long. But once it went that long, I was like, this is going to be fun one day, kind of like a 10-year-old cheeseburger and your Corona left in the window. Sometimes we purposely do this stuff.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. I give it an 8 out of 10. What do you give it?
Oh man, I think it's a 9. I think it's a 10 for being 10 years old. It's a 10 out of 10. I'm gonna give it 10s across the board. I mean, look, I expected this beer to fall apart in a bottle And then when you mentioned, I mean, I remember we used to talk about.
Yeah, where's that cap?
We used to talk about the seal.
Yeah, you can see
and
it.
how mold can permeate and things like
Yeah.
that. So when you brought that up, I was like, man, I didn't think about that. So for that, I mean, look,
For 10 years old, it held up really well.
I agree.
I don't taste anything bad in it. So what else is on the docket today, Eric?
You know, I wasn't going to say anything, but we talked about this pumpkin beer. Did you get to try it or no?
Oh yeah, we did it with the.
I think you nailed it. What do you think? No?
I like it.
So the biggest problem I think we're going to have to figure out here is this label, because
The label that I didn't want.
yeah, the label you didn't want. We've rebranded now for the third or fourth time, which is what all this is. And you know, now here we are again. We've got our pale ale, which is one of our first brands, still in its original label. And now we've got our fun brands like the Pumpkin Blaster and, you know, the High Creek. And, you know, now we've got the Big O. So I've been more worried about that than anything. This is the first time I've had the beer. I think it's phenomenal. I think we nailed it. But what would you give that thing?
The flavors for fall. It's like cinnamon, vanilla, nutmeg. I love pumpkin pie. My favorite is the Pumpkin Blaster on nitro, and I like it with this contraption that I got for my birthday. It comes out really nice. So I don't know. I mean, as far as pumpkin beers go, of course I'm biased. I think it's really stands up. We submitted it this year into GABF.
Oh, really?
Who knows what'll happen with that?
How many pumpkin
Fingers crossed.
was there in that?
Oh, quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few. It's one of the more popular categories.
Man, that's the perfect time of the year for it.
It's one of the more popular categories. I think what some breweries do is they will go through their lineup and see what they have that's going to be the freshest on their schedule, and that's what they put forth. I mean, I was really proud about winning the gold with the Big O recently at the US Open, because we just took those cans right off the production line. So a lot of people have taken a lot of care into making sure that we put out.
We said that since we've been on the podcast, did we?
I don't know, but I'm super proud of this can, by the way. I'm super proud of the can, and I mean, I think we got a write up in Forbes on it, and
We did win the gold at.
we won the gold at at US Open this year.
Okay. Yeah.
This year. The problem with GABF is they do not have a fruited IPA category. So this goes into the experimental IPA category, and it's a lot more subjective in that category. So part of the way that you win medals on these competitions is making sure that you're in the right category, and that in itself is an art. It's you know.
I'll never forget our original Belgian double was like 8.5, and we just weren't hitting the Belgian double marks.
Yeah.
I still say this. I think the beer was a little better at 8.5, but that's probably why our quad has won so many medals too.
The high end of the Belgian double category is 7.6 for the BJCP.
Crazy. I would have thought it was.
So
close.
when you go to that higher end, you're in the quad or Belgian dark strong ale.
So do you know, not to put you on the spot, like right around where should that quad start?
Up to 10.
Okay.
Up to 10%. So figure the end of Belgian double, which is a 7.6, up to 10%. So that's roughly where it goes for the they call it Belgian dark strong ale, which is it's not called a quad, it's called Belgian dark strong ale. So when they took the double, put it in the category with those other ones that are stronger and richer, it just doesn't stand up because they have stronger, richer beers on the table. But as soon as they separated double out in its own category, boom, we won gold in it.
How many pumpkin categories is there? Do you know?
Just one.
There's not an imperial?
Nope. Just one. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, a lot of people put everything in the kitchen sink in these beers. But so we'll see. But
we did good this year. What do you think?
So I do have another bit of news. I think I mentioned that my friends down in Brazil that were doing that do the Copa Cerveza in Blumenau, Brazil, are doing a craft brewery competition, their first ever international one. We're going to be entering our beer in that. And I got a special invitation to go down there and judge in November. So maybe I could do some live feeds from Brazil if I get a chance to go down there in November. So that's the week of November 9th.
We met him at Bill Simpson's class years ago. The guy that helps run that.
That's the guy that runs the Copa Cerveza Mexico. His name is what did I just say? Last name Ruiz.
There's more than one.
And yeah, the Copa Cerveza Mexico is that one that's in Mexico City and Chihuahua. I've judged that one before, but this one is run by a guy named Doug Merlot, and Doug found us on Beers of Joy and said, "Hey, how cool would it be to get Joe to come out and judge from Beers of Joy?" So he reached out after the film went out, and that's how.
Why didn't he say, "Man, wouldn't it be great if Rick and Joe came down here"?
It's funny though, Eric, because they put it is definitely fun, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you the truth. They put you to work, so you'll judge beer, and you have to write up each beer, and you'll do that all day long for 4 days straight, and then the last 2 days or 5 days or whatever it is. Hey, look, if you're not going to get rich, you might as well have fun.
Yeah. So I always got to say this. I love when you go do that stuff because you always come back with something good. You and I have always tried to do that. We've taken our wives' places and said, "Hey, if we get one good idea here, it's worth it." And you know what I'm talking about? And when you came back from Brazil last time, you came back talking about humongous cherries and rhubarb and things like that, and the fruits that they're using in Brazil, that kind of stuff. You can't find that.
Yeah, they have the Umburana wood. They're really famous for that. That's a Brazilian hardwood, and it gives the beer a really unique, spicy flavor, really amazing. And they have a lot of different unique Brazilian fruits that they incorporate into their beer, and I just love trying that.
Cherry that you kept talking, not Bamba cherry.
Oh, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm going to just avoid it. But there's a black cherry that grows right on the trunk of the tree.
Yeah, you were telling me.
And they put that in beer, and that's crazy. It's crazy to see it. Just grows right out there. I mean, Brazil's like the jungle. It's really cool.
When you came back and told me all that stuff, you and I went crazy.
Great bananas.
Because we almost came out with the Catalina Sour series. We got so excited on it, and then we were like, all right, well, we got too many things we're worried about here.
Well, I mean, we would have done it, but again, you have to have a place to put it. And when you have a crowded lineup, we release those sort of things in the tap room. So come on over to the tap room and check it out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of change in the industry this year. I think that's kind of the feeling of it. And we're going to have to keep reinventing ourselves and making good products and putting I think this, in Tim's famous words, Tim was our first consultant at the brewery that kind of taught me how to brew and gave us some advice on starting Sugar Creek up. Tim Lenahan, he said, "Hey guys, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's the person that can outlast everybody else that's going to be around at the end of the day." And boy, does that ring true 10 years later.
All the things that Tim said to us 10 or almost 11 years ago, whatever it is now, I have no idea. I mean, they're still true right now.
So in order to go down and do the Brazilian trip, they've requested that I do a talk at their brewing congress, okay, in front of all the people that do this stuff. And maybe I should use Tim's old talk that he had. Do you remember what he called it?
Oh my! That was so crazy. Is I was just telling somebody about this, and yeah, but please, because do you remember? You remember how it went down? I was literally. I'll set it up for you, then you just hammer it home. But that'd be something funny. We're in the basement at CBC Denver, the first year we're open. And we had just been through the first day, and we were blown away, like going to Vegas for the first time. This is great. And we saw the, what do you call them? The cup, not the cup holders, he had the little
coasters.
He had the coasters. This said CBC 1997.
Every year.
Yeah, speaker. And you said, "Oh man, you keynote speaker?" And Joe piped in and said, "What did you teach? What was it? What'd you say?"
I said, "Are you speaking?" And Tim said, "Yeah, I'm speaking this year." And I said, "Well, what are you speaking on, Tim?" He goes, "Why you shouldn't open a brewery."
Yeah. I was like, what did he just say?
That's the consultant we hired, and that was his headline.
His class was, "Why you shouldn't open a brewery."
Well, if anybody's curious, you can reach out to me directly, joe@sugarcreekbrewing.com. Shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to chat with you on that. Maybe that'll be the subject of our next. Yeah, maybe that'll be the subject of our next talk. But anyway, thanks for tuning in today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the gadgets.
Coming up, we've been super busy. It's probably been 60 days since our last podcast.
Yep.
Look, we're just like you guys. Our kids are getting back to school. We're getting some final summer stuff done. We produced a lot of liquid. We're proud of the brewers. We've had a lot of things going out the door, a lot of different brands. So hang in there. We got 10-year anniversary news coming up. A lot of other charities we're working with. So we appreciate you all.
Cheers.